Drew's explosive revelation: how one overheard conversation will destroy Portia and Curtis' marriage. The halls of General Hospital have become a breeding ground for secrets, lies, and devastating revelations, in what promises to be one of the most explosive storylines in recent memory. Drew Kane finds himself positioned to unleash chaos that will tear apart the already fragile marriage of Portia Robinson and Curtis Ashford. When Drew accidentally overhears a private conversation between Portia and Dr. Isaiah Gannon, he stumbles upon information that will give him the ultimate weapon of revenge against the couple who have caused him so much trouble. The fateful eavesdropping. The setup for this dramatic revelation begins innocuously enough. Drew, still recovering from the shooting that nearly ended his life, has been spending considerable time at General Hospital. His relationship with both Curtis and Portia has been strained to the breaking point, particularly after his blackmail schemes were exposed and his leverage over Portia disappeared. What Drew doesn't expect is to become an unwitting witness to the most damaging secret Portia has been harboring. As Drew makes his way through the hospital corridors, perhaps heading to a follow-up appointment or meeting with his medical team, he passes by a secluded area where Portia and Isaiah are having what they believe to be a private conversation. The two medical professionals, thinking they're alone, speak candidly about Portia's shocking pregnancy and the complicated paternity situation that has emerged. Drew freezes in his tracks as he hears Isaiah's voice discussing the pregnancy test results and Portia's anguished confession about her uncertainty regarding the baby's father. The conversation reveals that while Portia and Curtis had a brief reconciliation that led to intimacy, she also found comfort in Isaiah's arms during her darkest moments when her marriage seemed beyond repair. Now, faced with an unplanned pregnancy, Portia is grappling with the devastating reality that either man could be the father of her unborn child. The weight of the secret. Drew's mind races as he processes this information. Here is Portia, the woman who has caused him so much grief through her resistance to his blackmail attempts, now vulnerable in a way she never has been before. The irony is not lost on him. Portia, who has built a reputation on medical ethics and integrity, finds herself in the same position she was in decades ago when she concealed Trina's true paternity from Curtis. As Drew listens, he learns that Curtis remains completely unaware of both the pregnancy and Portia's affair with Isaiah. The conversation reveals Portia's internal struggle as she contemplates whether to tell Curtis about the baby and potentially destroy what little remains of their relationship, or to keep the secret and risk the truth emerging later. Isaiah, for his part, expresses concern about their professional relationship and the potential scandal if their affair becomes public knowledge. Drew realizes he has stumbled upon information that could serve multiple purposes. Not only does it give him ammunition against both Portia and Curtis, but it also provides him with a way to deflect attention from his own recent troubles and potentially gain sympathy as someone exposing the hypocrisy of those who have opposed him. Drew's calculated revenge. Drew's hatred for both Curtis and Portia runs deep. Curtis has been instrumental in working against Drew's interests, particularly in his efforts to take down Drew's congressional career and expose his unethical behavior. Portia, meanwhile, has been the target of Drew's blackmail schemes, and her eventual resistance to his demands has been a source of significant frustration for the disgraced congressman. Now, armed with this devastating information, Drew sees an opportunity for the perfect revenge. He knows that revealing Portia's pregnancy and affair will not only destroy her marriage to Curtis, but will also create a scandal that could damage both their professional reputations. For Drew, this represents a chance to strike back at the people who have made his life difficult while positioning himself as someone who is simply revealing the truth. Drew's approach to this revelation will be calculated and strategic. Rather than immediately confronting Curtis or Portia directly, he will likely choose his moment carefully, ensuring maximum impact and devastation. He understands that timing is everything in creating chaos, and he wants to ensure that his revelation will cause the most damage possible to both parties involved. The confrontation with Curtis. When Drew finally decides to reveal what he knows, he chooses Curtis as his target, knowing that this information will hit him where it hurts most. Drew approaches Curtis, perhaps catching him at Aurora Media or during a moment when Curtis believes he has finally gained the upper hand in their ongoing conflict. The conversation begins with Drew's typical smugness, but Curtis initially dismisses whatever Drew has to say, assuming it's another desperate attempt at manipulation. However, Drew's demeanor and the specific details he provides soon make it clear that this is no bluff. He describes exactly what he overheard, providing details about the conversation between Portia and Isaiah that only someone who was actually present could know. Drew watches with satisfaction as Curtis's face changes from skepticism to shock to devastating realization. The revelation hits Curtis like a physical blow. Not only is his wife pregnant, something she hasn't shared with him, but there's a very real possibility that the baby isn't his. Even worse, the affair with Isaiah represents another betrayal in a marriage that has already been tested by numerous lies and deceptions. Curtis realizes that while he was working to save their marriage and protect Portia from Drew's blackmail, she was finding comfort in another man's arms. Drew doesn't simply deliver the information and leave. He takes pleasure in watching Curtis process the devastating news, perhaps adding cruel commentary about how this situation mirrors Portia's past deception regarding Trina's paternity. He might suggest that Curtis should have seen this coming, given Portia's history of lies and betrayals. The psychological torture is as important to Drew as the information itself. Curtis's world crumbles. Curtis's reaction to this revelation is one of complete devastation. The man who has spent months trying to save his marriage and protect his wife from Drew's machinations suddenly realizes that his efforts have been built on yet another foundation of lies. The pregnancy represents not just another secret, but a potential betrayal that cuts to the core of their relationship. The parallel to Portia's past deception regarding Trina's paternity is impossible for Curtis to ignore. Once again, he finds himself in a situation where Portia has concealed crucial information about a pregnancy and its paternity. The realization that history is repeating itself adds an extra layer of pain to an already devastating situation. Curtis must grapple with multiple layers of betrayal simultaneously. There's the affair itself, which occurred during what he thought was a period of reconciliation and healing in their marriage. There's the pregnancy, which should have been joyful news shared between husband and wife, but instead has become a source of uncertainty and pain. And there's the continued deception, as Portia has apparently been planning to either keep the pregnancy secret or potentially lie about the paternity. The timing of this revelation is particularly cruel. Curtis had recently begun to believe that he and Portia might be able to overcome their recent difficulties and rebuild their marriage on a stronger foundation. Drew's blackmail scheme had been neutralized, and there seemed to be hope for a fresh start. Now, instead of moving forward together, Curtis realizes that their relationship has been fundamentally damaged, perhaps beyond repair. The inevitable confrontation. Armed with this devastating knowledge, Curtis knows he must confront Portia directly. The conversation that follows will be one of the most emotionally charged scenes in General Hospital's recent history. Curtis arrives at the hospital, his anger and hurt barely contained, seeking out his wife for what may be their final conversation as a married couple. When Curtis confronts Portia about the pregnancy and her affair with Isaiah, her initial reaction is one of shock and denial. She demands to know how Curtis learned about the pregnancy, and the revelation that Drew overheard her private conversation adds another layer of humiliation to an already devastating situation. Portia realizes that her most personal and private struggles have now become ammunition in Drew's ongoing war against them. Portia's attempts to explain or justify her actions fall on deaf ears. Curtis has reached his breaking point, and the cumulative effect of years of lies, deceptions, and betrayals has finally taken its toll. He confronts her about the pattern of behavior that has characterized their relationship, from the original deception about Trina's paternity to this latest betrayal. The conversation becomes increasingly heated as both parties unleash years of pent-up frustration and pain. Curtis expresses his devastation at being lied to yet again, while Portia attempts to explain the circumstances that led to her affair with Isaiah. However, her explanations only serve to highlight the depth of the deception and the calculated nature of her choices. The marriage's final moments. As the confrontation reaches its climax, both Curtis and Portia realize that their marriage cannot survive this latest revelation. The trust that has been rebuilt and destroyed multiple times throughout their relationship has finally been shattered beyond repair. Curtis makes it clear that he cannot and will not continue in a marriage built on lies and deception. The practical implications of their separation begin to surface during this conversation. There are questions about living arrangements, their shared responsibilities, and most importantly, the future of the unborn child, whose paternity remains uncertain. Curtis makes it clear that while he may have forgiven past deceptions, this latest betrayal represents a line that cannot be uncrossed. Portia, faced with the complete destruction of her marriage, finally begins to understand the full scope of the damage her choices have caused. Not only has she lost her husband, but she has also created a situation that will inevitably become public knowledge, potentially damaging her professional reputation and affecting her relationship with Trina. The conversation ends with Curtis making a definitive statement about the end of their marriage. Unlike previous separations that held the possibility of reconciliation, this one feels final and absolute. The accumulated weight of betrayals, lies, and deceptions has finally collapsed the foundation of their relationship entirely. The aftermath and consequences. The destruction of Curtis and Portia's marriage sends shockwaves throughout Port Charles. The revelation of Portia's affair and pregnancy becomes the subject of hospital gossip and community speculation. Professional colleagues who have respected Portia's medical expertise now view her through the lens of her personal scandals. Trina, who has watched her parents navigate various relationship challenges throughout her life, must now cope with the definitive end of their marriage and the prospect of gaining a half-sibling whose paternity is uncertain. The young woman, who has always looked up to her mother despite her flaws, struggles to understand how Portia could repeat the same patterns of deception that caused so much pain in the past. Isaiah finds himself at the center of a scandal that threatens both his professional standing and his future at General Hospital. The affair with a married colleague, particularly one in a position of authority, raises questions about professional ethics and appropriate workplace behavior. His relationship with Portia, which began as a source of comfort during her difficult period, has now become a liability that could affect his medical career. Drew, having achieved his goal of destroying Curtis and Portia's marriage, watches the aftermath with satisfaction. However, his role in exposing the affair and pregnancy also reveals his own vindictive nature and willingness to exploit personal information for revenge. While he may have succeeded in his immediate goal, his actions further cement his reputation as someone who cannot be trusted and who will use any available weapon against his perceived enemies. The pregnancy itself becomes a source of ongoing drama and uncertainty. Medical professionals who work closely with both Portia and Isaiah find themselves in the uncomfortable position of knowing about the affair and its consequences while maintaining professional relationships with all parties involved. Next, we will learn about the explosive drama surrounding Michael Corinthos and the devastating shooting scandal that threatens to tear the Corinthos family apart forever. In the most shocking turn of events to hit Port Charles in years, emerging evidence points directly toward Michael as the prime suspect in Drew Cain's near-fatal assassination attempt, setting the stage for a legal battle that could destroy everything the Corinthos empire has built over decades. Michael's web of guilt tightens. The circumstantial evidence mounting against Michael Corinthos reads like a prosecutor's dream case, with every piece of the puzzle falling into place with terrifying precision. Not only did Michael harbor an explosive grudge against Drew Cain following their bitter confrontations over Aurora media and family loyalty, but the smoking gun literally traces back to the Quartermain family legacy. The vintage firearm used in the attempted murder belonged to none other than Edward Quartermain, Michael's beloved great-grandfather, a weapon that had been carefully preserved in the family estate for generations. This antique revolver, with its distinctive engravings and historical significance, had been stored in Edward's private study, accessible only to family members who knew the secret compartment behind his portrait. Michael, as Edward's cherished great-grandson and frequent visitor to the mansion during his childhood, would have intimate knowledge of this hiding place, making him one of the few people capable of retrieving the weapon without detection. The motive runs deeper than surface-level business disputes, stretching back to a series of heated exchanges between Michael and Drew that escalated beyond professional disagreements into personal vendettas. Sources close to the investigation reveal that Michael had discovered Drew's secret surveillance of the Corinthos coffeeware house operations, an invasion of privacy that Michael viewed as a direct attack on his family's livelihood and legacy. During a particularly explosive confrontation at the Metro Court, witnesses reported seeing Michael's hands shake with rage as he warned Drew to stay away from his business interests, his voice carrying the unmistakable tone of someone pushed to his breaking point. The tension reached its peak when Drew allegedly threatened to expose certain financial irregularities in Michael's legitimate businesses, using his political connections to launch investigations that could have sent Michael to prison for decades. Drew's calculated frame job. Meanwhile, Drew Kane has orchestrated what appears to be a masterful manipulation campaign designed to ensure Michael's downfall, regardless of his actual guilt in the shooting. Operating from his hospital bed with the cunning of a seasoned politician, Drew has been systematically feeding information to law enforcement that paints Michael in the most incriminating light possible. His strategy involves carefully timed revelations about Michael's whereabouts on the night of the shooting, coupled with testimonies from questionable witnesses who claim to have seen Michael near the scene of the crime. Drew's congressional connections have proven invaluable in this endeavor, with federal agencies suddenly taking an unprecedented interest in what should be a straightforward local investigation. The most damning aspect of Drew's frame job involves the strategic placement of evidence that would naturally point to Michael's involvement. Security footage from the Quartermain mansion mysteriously disappeared from certain time frames, while other recordings conveniently show Michael visiting the estate just days before the shooting occurred. Drew's team has also managed to plant seeds of doubt about Michael's alibi, claiming that his supposed meeting with ELQ board members was actually a cover story designed to create distance from the crime scene. This calculated approach demonstrates Drew's understanding that in the court of public opinion, perception often matters more than truth, especially when dealing with a family as controversial as the Corinthos clan. Carly's maternal desperation. Laura Wright's portrayal of Carly Spencer has never been more emotionally charged than in these current episodes, where her maternal instincts clash violently with her sense of justice and morality. The actress revealed in her recent Soap Opera Digest interview that Carly's internal struggle represents every parent's worst nightmare, discovering that your child might be capable of violence that could destroy their future forever. Carly's suspicions about Michael's guilt didn't emerge overnight, but developed gradually through subtle behavioral changes she observed in her son following the shooting. His inability to make eye contact during family conversations, his sudden interest in legal procedures, and his uncharacteristic withdrawal from family gatherings all contributed to her growing certainty that Michael pulled the trigger that night. The depth of Carly's protective instincts knows no bounds, and her willingness to sacrifice herself for her children has been demonstrated repeatedly throughout the show's history. In private moments captured through emotional flashbacks, viewers witness Carly pacing her penthouse apartment at 3 a.m., rehearsing confessions she might never deliver, calculating the legal ramifications of false testimony, and researching precedents for maternal sacrifice in high-profile criminal cases. Her conversations with her reflection in the bathroom mirror reveal a woman preparing for war, someone who understands that protecting Michael might require her to embrace a level of deception that could permanently damage her relationships with everyone she loves. The false confession strategy. Carly's potential plan to falsely confess to Drew's shooting represents the ultimate maternal sacrifice, a desperate gambit that could backfire spectacularly if executed without careful consideration of all variables. Her strategy would involve crafting a believable narrative about her own motive for wanting Drew dead, perhaps claiming that she discovered evidence of Drew's plan to destroy her family's businesses or threatening her grandchildren's future security. She has been secretly consulting with legal experts, using intermediaries to avoid detection, gathering information about how to make a confession appear credible without actually providing details that could be disproven through forensic evidence. The psychological preparation for such a deception has taken its toll on Carly's mental state, with close friends noticing her increased drinking, her tendency to snap at innocent comments, and her obsessive attention to news coverage of the case. She has been practicing her confession in front of a video camera hidden in her bedroom, refining her delivery to appear genuine while avoiding details that could implicate Michael further. The irony of this situation lies in the possibility that Michael might actually be innocent, making Carly's sacrifice not only unnecessary, but potentially harmful to uncovering the real perpetrator. The Willow factor. The introduction of Willow Tate as a potential scapegoat in Carly's desperate scheme adds another layer of complexity to this already volatile situation. Carly's relationship with Willow has been strained since the custody battle began, with underlying tensions about parenting styles, family loyalty, and Michael's divided attention, creating a perfect storm for misdirected blame. If Carly chooses to point the finger at Willow, she would need to construct a believable motive, perhaps suggesting that Willow feared losing her children permanently and saw eliminating Drew as the only way to prevent his political influence from affecting the custody case. The timing of Michael's gesture toward Willow, offering her additional visitation time with their children despite the ongoing legal proceedings, creates a beautiful irony that could shatter their co-parenting relationship if Carly proceeds with her accusation. Michael's genuine attempt at reconciliation and his demonstration of trust in Willow's parenting abilities would be completely undermined by his mother's betrayal, potentially causing him to question everything he thought he knew about family loyalty and maternal love. This scenario would force Michael to choose between defending the mother of his children and supporting his own mother, a decision that could fracture the Corinthos family permanently. The ripple effect. As this storyline continues to unfold, the consequences extend far beyond the immediate family members involved, threatening to expose long-buried secrets throughout Port Charles society. The investigation has already begun uncovering connections between the Quartermain family weapons collection and other unsolved crimes from decades past, suggesting that this case might be the key to unlocking a series of cold cases that have haunted the town for years. Secondary characters are being forced to choose sides, with longtime family friends and business associates suddenly finding themselves under scrutiny for their potential knowledge of or involvement in the conspiracy. The legal ramifications promise to create courtroom drama that will rival any previous storyline in General Hospital history, with family members potentially testifying against each other, constitutional rights being challenged, and the very definition of justice being questioned by characters who have operated in moral gray areas for their entire adult lives. As the investigation deepens and more evidence emerges, fans can expect shocking revelations about character motivations, hidden relationships, and the true extent of the corruption that has been festering beneath Port Charles' seemingly civilized surface for generations.